How did the most entitled person you've ever met get completely owned? I was a flight attendant for 9 years. I quit 2 years ago because of one passenger. Her name was Margot Pemberton, first class. She'd been on my flights 4 times. She'd been a nightmare every single time. She'd send back food. She'd demand champagne not on the menu. She'd ask for the pilot to come out and meet her. She'd snap her fingers. She'd loudly complain about other passengers within earshot. She'd take her shoes off and put her bare feet on the bulkhead. She left Yelp reviews about specific crew members by name. I'd been one of those reviews. She'd accused me of being rude because I'd told her she couldn't bring her dog into the cockpit. The 4th time she was on my flight, she did the worst thing she'd ever done. We were on a 5-hour transcontinental, New York to Los Angeles. She'd been seated in 2A. The man in 2B was an older gentleman flying alone. Quiet, well-dressed. He'd ordered a club soda. He'd thanked me when I brought it. About an hour into the flight, he had what appeared to be a medical episode. He was clutching his chest. He was sweating. He couldn't catch his breath. I was working the cabin and I came over immediately. I knelt down next to him. I asked if he was all right. He couldn't speak. I called for the lead flight attendant. We started our medical protocol. We needed to clear the space around him. We needed to get him to lay down across the row. I asked Margot if she could please move to another seat temporarily so we could attend to the passenger. Margot looked at the man having a heart attack. Then she looked at me. Then she said, "Absolutely not. I paid for this seat. He should have gotten his own row." I thought I'd misheard her. "Ma'am, he's having a medical emergency. We just need this row for 10 minutes. I said no. Move him to coach if you need a row. The lead flight attendant, Beatrice, came over. She was sterner than me. "Ma'am, we need this seat now. Please move." Margot pulled out her phone. "I'm filming this. You're discriminating against me for what I paid for." Then she pressed the call button on the seat next to her. "I want to speak to the pilot." Beatrice and I lifted the older man from his seat together. We had to navigate around Margot, who refused to move her body or her bag. She kept filming. She kept narrating. "These flight attendants are pulling a passenger from his seat without his consent. Disgusting service." The older man passed out in my arms. We got him laid across the aisle. I started chest compressions. Margot filmed me doing CPR on a dying man while complaining that her champagne was warm. We made an emergency landing in Denver. Paramedics boarded the plane. They took the older man off on a stretcher. He survived. Margot complained loudly to the gate agent in Denver that her flight had been delayed by this unnecessary drama. She demanded a refund and an upgrade voucher. The gate agent looked at her with the deadest eyes I've ever seen and gave her a customer service email address. Margot posted the video of me doing CPR to her TikTok. She had 90,000 followers. The video got picked up. Within 12 hours, it had 4 million views. The caption said, "Flight attendant manhandled an elderly passenger for no reason. Will never fly this airline again." The comments turned on her immediately. People recognized what CPR looked like. They were horrified that she'd filmed it. They were horrified she'd refused to move. Margot deleted the video within 24 hours, but the internet had already saved it. Other passengers from the flight came forward. They posted their own videos of her. They posted screenshots of her seat number. They posted the gate agent interaction. By day 3, Margot had been identified, named, and her employer found. She worked at a luxury PR firm in Manhattan. She represented several major brands. Her firm fired her on day 5, but it didn't stop there. The older man's family had seen the video. They contacted me through the airline. The man's name was Mr. Whitmarsh. He was 84. He'd been flying to Los Angeles to see his daughter for the first time in 7 years. They'd been estranged. He'd been going out for his granddaughter Luciana's wedding. He'd been so nervous about the trip that he'd skipped his medication that morning. The skipped medication had contributed to the heart attack. Mr. Whitmarsh sent me a letter 2 weeks later, handwritten, beautiful penmanship. He thanked me for saving his life. He told me he had a small thing he wanted to do for me but didn't want to do it publicly. He included his phone number. I called him. He told me he was a retired federal judge. He told me he wasn't a billionaire but he was comfortable. He told me that what Margot had done on that flight had been criminal. He told me he'd been quietly working on it with his connections. Mr. Whitmarsh had spoken to 2 FBI agents who'd been investigating Margot's firm for 9 months for separate issues entirely. He'd shown them the video. He'd pointed out things in it I hadn't noticed. Margot's bag was visible in 2 of her frames. Inside the bag was a folder. The folder had documents stamped with the name of one of her clients. Documents that should not have been outside of secure storage. Mr. Whitmarsh's call to the FBI had accelerated something they'd been building for months. Margot's firing was about to become the smallest thing that had happened to her. 3 weeks after that phone call with Mr. Whitmarsh, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was a woman. Her voice was clipped and professional. She said she represented Margot Pemberton. She said Margot would appreciate a conversation about correcting the public record. I deleted the voicemail. 2 days later, a second voicemail from the same number. This one was different, firmer, colder. She said Margot was exploring all legal options and that my cooperation now would be in everyone's best interest. My hands were shaking when the message ended. This woman, who had filmed me saving a man's life and tried to turn it into content, was now threatening me through a lawyer. I called Mr. Whitmarsh. He picked up on the second ring. His voice was calm. I told him about the voicemails. He didn't sound worried at all. He said, "Don't respond. Don't call back. Don't even acknowledge you received it. She's used to scaring people into silence. That's how her firm operated for years. That's why the FBI is involved." Then he asked me something I wasn't ready for. He asked if I'd be willing to speak with the 2 FBI agents who were working the case, not as a witness to what happened on the plane, as a character witness, someone who could talk about Margot's pattern of behavior across multiple flights. I didn't answer right away. I told him I'd quit my job to get away from all of this. I told him I'd spent months trying to move on. I said, "I just want to forget she exists." Mr. Whitmarsh was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I understand, but the next person she does this to might not have someone doing chest compressions in the aisle." That sentence lived in my head for 3 days. The next person she does this to, because there would be a next person. That was the thing about Margot. She wasn't going to stop. The next time someone had a heart attack next to her or needed help or was in trouble, she was going to do the same thing she did to Mr. Whitmarsh. On the 3rd day, I called Mr. Whitmarsh back. I told him I'd do it. He didn't say, "I knew you would," or anything like that. He just said, "Good, I'll give you a number." The agent who answered was professional and direct. He told me the investigation wasn't actually about what happened on the plane. He said it was about documents Margot had been transporting on behalf of her clients. Documents that were part of a bigger pattern of mishandling handling private materials. Margot's firm had been moving sensitive client information outside of secure channels for months. They'd been using employees like Margot as couriers, having them carry physical documents on flights instead of going through the right systems. And then he said the part that made me sit down. He said, she filmed her own crime and posted it for 4 million people to see. She'd pulled out her phone to embarrass me. She'd narrated her little victim story for her followers. And in those frames, her bag was open. The documents were visible. The client name was stamped right there. She'd recorded the evidence, edited it, captioned it, and uploaded it to the internet herself. The agent told me they wanted me to come in for a formal interview. I said yes. He gave me a date. The day of the interview came faster than I expected. The building looked like every other government building I'd ever seen. Plain, gray, no personality. When the agent came out to get me, he led me down a hallway into a small room with a table and 2 chairs on one side and one on the other. There was a second agent already sitting there. She had a notepad open. They asked me to start from the beginning, so I did. I told them everything. The finger snapping, the food sent back, the champagne demands, the pilot requests, the Yelp reviews with crew members named, the dog in the cockpit, the bare feet on the bulkhead, the screaming at crew. I gave them every date I could remember, every flight number, the names of every crew member who had been on those flights with me. Beatrice. Others whose names I pulled from memory like pulling threads from old fabric. The agents wrote everything down. They didn't interrupt. They didn't rush me. And then I told them about the 4th flight, the one where Mr. Whitmarsh had his heart attack, the one where Margot refused to move, the one where she filmed me doing chest compressions on a dying man and complained about warm champagne, the way she said absolutely not, the way she held her phone up while I was kneeling in the aisle trying to keep a man alive. When I was done, the room was quiet for a few seconds. The female agent looked at me and said, "You're not the only flight attendant who's come forward. 3 others from different airlines have reported similar incidents with the same passenger." I sat there and felt something wash over me that I can only describe as relief so big it almost made me dizzy. 3 other people, 3 other flights, 3 other flight attendants who had dealt with the same woman and the same behavior. I wasn't alone. The interview lasted about 2 hours total. I drove home with the windows down. The air felt different, lighter, like something heavy had been sitting on my chest for months, and someone had finally reached over and lifted it off. I went to bed early that night. It was the best sleep I'd had in months. At 7:14 the next morning, someone knocked on my apartment door. I remember the time because I looked at my phone right before I got up. I was expecting a package. I walked to the door in my pajamas. I didn't check the peephole. I just opened it. Margot Pemberton was standing in my hallway. She was wearing a camel-colored coat. She was holding a coffee in each hand. She extended one toward me and said, "Can we talk?" Woman to woman. Every part of my body went cold. I didn't take the coffee. I just stood there. I asked her how she found my address. She waved the question away. "I just want 5 minutes," she said. "I think we got off on the wrong foot." I told her she needed to leave. My voice was steady, but my heart was going so fast I could feel it in my neck. Margot didn't move. She lowered her voice almost to a whisper and said, "I know you talked to someone yesterday. I know what building you were in. I'm not angry about it. I just think there's a version of this where we both walk away happy." Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded check. She held it out to me between 2 fingers. $50,000, she said. "You make a statement saying I was cooperative on the flight, that I moved when asked, that the video was taken out of context, and this all goes away. I won't lie to you." For 1 second, the number hit me. $50,000. I hadn't worked in months. My savings were getting thinner every week. For 1 second, I thought about it. And then I saw Mr. Whitmarsh's handwritten letter in my mind. I saw him on the stretcher being carried off the plane. I saw his face when he passed out in my arms. And I saw Margot, standing behind me, holding her phone up, filming me while I did chest compressions, complaining about champagne while a man was dying. I looked at her and said, "Get away from my door." Margot's smile didn't go away. It changed. It got harder. She put the check back in her coat pocket slowly. "You're making a mistake," she said. "I'm trying to be nice. I won't try again." Then she turned and walked down the hallway. She didn't look back. I closed the door. I locked it. I put the chain on. Then I grabbed my phone and called the FBI agent. I told him Margot Pemberton had just been at my apartment. I told him what she said. I told him about the check. I told him about the part where she said she knew what building I'd been in yesterday. The agent was quiet for a few seconds after I finished talking. Then he said, "What you're describing is witness tampering. This is serious." 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Scarlett, Mr. Whitmarsh's daughter. She was upset. The kind of upset where someone is trying to hold it together but the edges are cracking. She told me that Margot's lawyer had sent a letter to Mr. Whitmarsh, a formal letter on fancy letterhead. The letter claimed that Mr. Whitmarsh had been publicly defaming Margot by sharing medical details of the flight with outside parties. It threatened a civil lawsuit if he didn't cease all contact with media and investigators. Scarlett's voice broke when she said the next part. She said, "My father is 84 years old. He just had a heart attack, and this woman is threatening to sue him for talking about it." I felt something change inside me right then. For months, the thing I'd felt most when I thought about Margot was fear. Fear of her lawyers, fear of her reach. But sitting there listening to Scarlett, the fear just burned away. What replaced it was anger. Clean, clear, focused anger. I called Mr. Whitmarsh right after. He picked up after a few rings. I asked him about the letter. He let out a long breath and said, "I've been a judge for 40 years. I know a bluff when I see one. She's scared. Scared people make threats. Terrified people make mistakes." He told me his own lawyer had already reviewed it and called it noise. Then he told me something that made me realize how badly Margot had miscalculated. He said the FBI had moved their timeline up. Whatever Margot had done by showing up at my apartment with that check, by sending that threatening letter to an 84-year-old heart attack survivor, she had made things worse for herself in ways she couldn't even see yet. He said, "She doesn't know it yet, but every move she's making right now is being added to the file." 6 weeks went by. 6 weeks of checking my doorbell camera every morning. 6 weeks of jumping a little every time my phone buzzed. 6 weeks of waiting for something I wasn't even sure was coming. And then on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was folding laundry on my bed, my phone rang. It was the FBI agent. His voice was the same as always. Flat, professional, no build-up. He just said it. "Margot Pemberton was arrested this morning." I stopped folding. I just stood there holding a pillowcase. He kept talking. He told me it wasn't just about the documents on the plane. The investigation had grown. Margot had been transporting confidential client material materials outside of secure channels for over a year. She'd been using the information to build relationships with competing firms. She'd been selling access to things she was supposed to protect. Then he said, her own video was the key piece of evidence. She filmed the inside of her own bag. She posted it publicly. She handed us the case. I sat down on the edge of my bed and didn't say a word. He told me Margot was facing federal charges. He told me the witness tampering at my apartment had been added to the indictment. He told me Mr. Whitmarsh's testimony and my own testimony about the 4 flights had corroborated everything else. Then he said, you helped build this. You should know that. 2 weeks after the arrest, I saw one final piece of news. Margot had tried to post bail. It was denied. The judge cited flight risk and a pattern of witness intimidation. I read those words on my phone sitting at my kitchen table, and I thought about that morning at my door. The camel coat, the 2 coffees, the folded check between her fingers, the smile that went hard and mean when I told her to leave. I thought about what would have happened if I'd taken the money, if I'd stayed quiet, if I'd let her buy my silence for $50,000. The whole case might have fallen apart. One moment of weakness from me could have let Margot walk free. I chose right, and it cost her everything. A month later, I flew to Los Angeles, not for work. Mr. Whitmarsh had invited me to dinner with his family. Scarlett opened the door and hugged me so hard and for so long that Mr. Whitmarsh had to say, let the girl breathe, Scarlett. Luciana showed me the wedding photos. There was one of Mr. Whitmarsh walking her down the aisle. He was crying in it. Luciana pointed to it and said, that's because of you. After dinner, Mr. Whitmarsh walked me to the door. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. It said, you didn't just save my life. You gave me back my family. That's a debt I can't repay, but I'll spend whatever time I have left trying. I folded the note carefully and put it in my jacket pocket. I drove to the airport. I walked through the terminal. I watched the flight attendants working the gates. I didn't miss the job, but for the first time, I didn't regret the years I gave to it either.